Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another fantastic interview on the Loudini Rock and Roll Circus. My name is LouLombardi, a.k.a. Loudini. Today, we're going to be talking with Mary Jennings. She's got a great new record out. She's a Nashville artist who's very un-Nashville in a lot of ways. It's going to be a really interesting conversation. Before we get started, I want to thank my sponsors, Positively Pittsburgh Live magazine. You can go to pplmag.com. It's Pittsburgh's first internet radio, TV network, and online community magazine and business directory. If you've got a business and you want to get the word out, you want to be seen and heard around the area, you want to go to pplmag.com. Also like to thank MTS Management Group. MTS Management Group is more than just an artist management company. It's a bona fide rock star in the music industry, specializing in full-service artist management, publicity and promotions, and social media campaigns. MTS Management is on the cutting edge of today's new music business. Now, we've got a wonderful artist here today. Mary Jennings is a Nashville native doing anything but what you would currently associate with the Nashville music scene, which is probably why her Walking Dead-inspired video Home was just recently featured in No Country for New Nashville. Jennings just released her latest LP, Metamorphosis, and it's seething with confident, brazen confessions that descend like a deep blue dusk. Every track is like a sudden sharp pain in the arm, in a good way. You feel it, you endure it, and it ends in an odd comfort because you realize that in that short instant how resilient you really are. Mary Jennings, welcome to the Loudini Rock and Roll Circus.
Thank you so much. That was one of the best introductions ever.
Oh, Mary, you've been playing music for quite a while now.
That's very true.
But your recording career started as a sort of a result of a personal tragedy. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So I'd been writing music starting in high school, but my mom passed away very suddenly when I was a freshman in college. I was 18, almost turning 19, and that just kind of, I had two options. I could either go completely insane or I could find an outlet for what I was going through. And music really became that outlet for me. And even though I had been doing music prior to that, I really moved forward with the music and did it even more. And the following summer, my dad gave me the option to record an album. He basically said he wanted me to do at least one of two things: go to therapy or record an album. And he said that, to him, he said, really recording an album would probably be just as therapeutic, and I would end up with something that I could reflect on in the future. I mean, I think if I had really felt like I needed both, he would have made a way to make both work. But I jumped at the opportunity to record an album and start to get that experience.
Now, you grew up with some strong musical roots in your family. Now, were you your grandparents or something that sort of got you interested in music?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, my dad's side of the family is very, very musical. I mean, my dad plays bass and guitar, and he can play piano, but he played bass in a band throughout high school. And then my grandparents, his parents, my grandfather is a singer. My grandmother played piano beautifully. And her mom played piano, and my grandfather's father was a singer as well. So it's just kind of been passed on through the years, and pretty much everywhere I went growing up with family, whether it was an aunt's house or uncle's house or grandparents, everybody had a piano in their home. So it was kind of the natural path, I think, in a lot of ways.
You were just sort of born into it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So growing up, in addition to your family and everything, who were some of your favorite artists? What music did you like? What inspired you and influenced you?
I think that, when you're really young, you listen to whatever your parents listen to. And so, both my parents had extremely diverse tastes in music. So I was raised around a lot of different things. But one of the genres of music that really stuck out to me at a very young age was Celtic music. I loved the harmonies. I loved the minor keys. They just all really, rang out to me as something that I enjoyed. And then I will never forget it, but when I was in 7th grade Latin class, it was either 7th grade or 8th grade Latin class, my friend Amy Schwartzbaum had her portable CD player, her Discman, and she had just gotten, I believe it was Boys for Pele on a disc, which is a Tori Amos album.
That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, and she was like, Mary, she was like, Mary, you need to listen to this. So before class, she started playing me some from Boys for Pele, and I was like, oh my gosh, this kind of music exists in the world? What is this? And I couldn't get enough of it. So I went and, I got her back catalog up to that point. I've gotten every album since then. So I would say that Tori Amos was one of the first ones to really spark that, oh, this is what I would want to sound like. This is the kind of music that I want to write. Because it was just so honest, and so the language was so beautiful. She wasn't afraid to use strange words and ugly pictures in her songs, which I felt so much more than just, your typical hook or pop song. Mm-hmm. So that kind of, I would say that she really started me down this path of being obsessed with the female powerhouse and songstress. So fell in love with Tori, and then Sarah McLachlan, Fiona Apple. Later on in life, Imogen Heap, Thea. I've really just been attached to that kind of music from a very early age.
It's kind of moody.
Yes, moody, and I like all kinds of music to listen to, but the stuff that really moves me is the music that is so totally honest. Almost so honest that you wonder if you yourself can relate to it, because this is that person's story, so can it really be my own story? You find a way to attach yourself to it, but I just love that honesty and wanted to be that kind of artist.
Okay, all right. So you have these influences, you have this musical family, you have this tragedy. Now how does this, when you sit down to write, are all these things just sort of like organically kind of swirling around? Do you have do you sit down, no, I want to write about this particular idea? How do you approach songwriting?
Well, for me, songwriting, it starts with an inspiration, and inspiration can come from anywhere. All of my friends and family could tell you that I pretty much constantly have, whether it's through my phone or a separate device, a handheld recorder and some sort of writing, like a journal or something to write down, because I could be in mid-conversation with a person and something that they say or something that I say, I'm like, oh my gosh, this could be in a song. Write it down. So I'm constantly keeping journal entries and lists of ideas and thoughts, and it can even be inspirations from sounds. I have been inspired to write a song from listening to a car alarm go off. Living in the city, if a car alarm goes off and it's just constant, the way that I would tolerate that sound would be to write a melody around it. And so I would just record that melody, and it might come into play later on. So it really comes from anywhere. So maybe in that sense it's organic, but I don't just sit down and go, I want to write about this subject today, and then out it comes. It never really comes like that. It starts somewhere. You have several albums out now, right? How many do you have? I should know the answer to that right off the top of my head, and I do not. I have five. So let's see, there's Jennings Recovery, Fantastic, then Collapse Collide, and Metamorphosis. So 5 fully produced albums, 1 live album, and 1 EP, and then I'm putting out a remix album in January. So however you want to add that up. 5 fully produced albums, though.
Okay. So do you write for the record, or is it just like, okay, I've collected these songs now, I have several that are good. I mean, as great of a songwriter as you are, I'm sure you have those songs you go like, no, this isn't really going to make the record. But do you write for the record, okay, I need to write a new record, or is it it's just always, you're always, how does that work?
I'm always writing songs.
Okay.
Always. I mean, right now I don't have a plan to put out an album anytime soon, and I'm still writing music. But what I find is that, especially like with this past, we'll talk about Metamorphosis specifically, is that as I was writing, I started to notice similar themes that were going through a lot of the songs that I was writing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, well, this would make a nice collection for an album. And with this one, you know, there were definitely songs that I had that I did not put on this album. And it wasn't that they weren't good enough or that they just didn't make the cut. They just didn't fit. They didn't fit with the story I was trying to tell in this album. They'll probably end up on an album in the future. But like, for instance, Tidal Wave, the last song on the track or on the album, it was written, I want to say like 3.5 or 4 years ago. And it never made it on anything, but it started screaming at me and said, I want to be on this one. So I said, okay, I'll put you on this one. You actually fit on this one. So, you know, I don't just write for an album, except in the instance that I do write collections of songs. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I tend to, especially if I'm struggling to find a topic, like one of the things I just recently started doing within the past couple of years is writing horror movie-based songs. So I love scary movies. Like, if I'm not writing music, I am watching scary movies. I love them so much.
Cool.
And so
I started.
Yeah.
Well, you got a song on a horror soundtrack.
I did. I got Into Darkness on a movie called Devil's Seed. It was so cool. It was like the best win ever. But cool. I started writing songs based on the movies, and I wanted them to be, you know, loosely based on the movies. Meaning, if you knew it was about the movie, you thought it was really cool and you got behind it. But if you didn't know it was about the movie, you might still be able to relate to it. Mm-hmm. So I started writing songs like that. So in that sense, I get collections, but it's not like I write specifically for an album, at least not up to this point.
All right. Then I have to ask you, on Metamorphosis, just pick one of the tunes and tell me what movie it inspired you.
Well, I mean, Home, it's not based on a movie, but it was based on watching The Walking Dead. Okay. And I'm obsessed with The Walking Dead, and I started watching it. Like, I kind of was late to the game. So I binge watched like the first 2 seasons or something during Hurricane Sandy when I was living in New York. And so it was this really interesting feeling of it, you know, because it kind of felt apocalyptic outside. Everybody had either left the city or was, you know, pinned up in their apartment, you know, worried about what was going on. And I'm watching this show about the apocalypse, and I woke up from a dead sleep and I had the idea for Home and started writing it, you know, and working with my loop pedal on it and stuff like that, you know, while my husband slept in the other room. And it turned into a song that was just completely based on watching that show.
Now boy, there's so many things I want to cover. Because you mentioned the loop thing, and I want to talk a little bit about that. But before we get into that, tell us a little bit more about Metamorphosis and anything you'd like to add about that before we move on, because I want to talk to you about your live show, because it's very interesting.
Oh, thanks. Well, I mean, I guess there's not too much to say about the new album other than I'm proud of it, and it had a lot of different aspects for me that I hadn't done before. There were actually 3 producers on the record. 6 of the tunes were done by a guy named Nathan Rosenberg with Doghouse Studios, NYC up in New York. One was done by one of my best friends, Ian O'Neill, who's, you know, a drummer and a producer. And then another one was done by a friend here named Aaron Krause, who's a Nashville artist and producer. So it was the first time that I'd ever worked with multiple producers. It was the first album that had co-writes on it, that had, you know, songs that weren't written just by me, but maybe written by me and another person.
Oh, okay.
And, you know, so there were a lot of things that were changes for me in the process of writing and producing.
Now, how do you deal with that when you're used to writing on your own? How do you deal with that, or was it easy for you? Because for me, I used to write with a partner. I wrote with a partner for years, and then I was on my own, and I had to write. And now I'm kind of like funny about writing with somebody. They've got to be like really special. You know what I mean? But go ahead.
Sure. Well, I think that co-writes are hit or miss. For every awesome co-write you have, you might have 4 okay ones.
Yeah.
It just kind of depends. And it's a matter of having similar writing styles, but also having enough differences that you challenge each other. And, one of my favorite co-writers is the one that co-wrote with Love You Best and Tectonic Plates. His name's Jeremy Nash. And his genre of music is different than mine as an artist. Like, he writes, more of an Americana, folk, singer-songwriter music. But it was great because he knows music so well. So I could come in with an idea and with a chord structure, and he would say, well, why don't we change the chord structure to this? And why don't you try doing a melody kind of like this? And it would be things that I wouldn't have thought about.
Yeah.
That they still fit my genre perfectly.
Right.
But it just, you get, as a songwriter, you get into comfort zones, and you have your go-tos.
Yeah.
And they're like the tricks that you keep in your pocket. And you might be tempted to use them on every song because you like the way they sound, but you really need, in order to have diversity in your music, I think it's always good to work with people. And you can get that with producers, and you can get that with co-writers. So I really enjoy it if it's a good co-write.
Moving on to the live show. Now, you do some very cool things that, what can people expect from Mary Jennings live?
Well, it totally depends on where you see me. So when I'm on tour, oftentimes I'm by myself. So if I'm touring alone, then what you can expect is a woman with a big voice, a piano, and a loop pedal. And the loop pedal is a way for me to layer vocals and beats and extra sounds so that you get a clearer picture of what I expect my music to sound like. If you're just playing a piano and singing, there's obviously room for that, and I think it's great, and it's a very different kind of show, and I love doing those as well. But that doesn't necessarily navigate you to what my genre is if you've never heard me before. I could just be a singer. I could be a singer-songwriter. It might be country. It might be with a band. It might be electronica. You just don't ever really know until you hear the full production. So with the loop pedal, I'm able to steer it a little bit more in the direction that I expect and that I hope my listeners will take away. And I've loved it. I've been using it for probably, I guess, 6 or 7 years now, and I really love using it. It just elevates the show. But, if I'm playing in Nashville, a lot of times I'll, use the loop pedal and the keyboard, but I might also have my buddy Jeremy playing acoustic guitar and singing backup vocals with me, and a cellist and a violinist to really fill it out. I definitely have a guy that plays drums with me and a bassist that sometimes will do full band shows. So it just totally depends on the venue and, the city and then at the time and how much I can afford.
I understand. Touring can be expensive, and you got to take other people with you. The price goes up exponentially.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, that's the loop thing is becoming more and more popular. I'm seeing more and more artists do that now. You really have to practice with that. I mean, it takes a while to kind of master that, doesn't it?
I think so. I mean, I could definitely even be better now, and so I'm always practicing with it. It's just, there's always more that you could be doing with it, and it's a matter of not only getting your timing right, but also doing loops tastefully. You don't want to over loop, and you don't want to under loop. So it's finding that balance between, what's just the right amount.
Now on your website, you have some very interesting, very cool remakes of some great songs by people like Dave Grohl and U2 and stuff like that. Have you thought? Are these now that you occasionally sprinkle your show with some of these songs? Is that what you do?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's pretty much a guarantee that in a 30 to 45 minute set, I'll play at least 1 or 2 covers because it's a crowd pleaser. No matter where you are, if I'm in a room full of people that don't know who I am, they might kind of listen while I'm playing, but the second that I play a song that they recognize, then I have their attention because they know the song. They can sing it back to you. Yeah. So I love doing this.
It gives people an opportunity to participate, and and then if you pick the song properly, it really actually really reflects upon your style. It really kind of brings people in to kind of go, oh yeah, that's what she does.
Exactly.
Yeah. I just as the your version of Everlong. Wow. That
Thank
just
you.
that was
Thank
like
you.
with the cello. That was fantastic. I recommend just pause right here and tell everybody when you get a chance, go to MaryJennings.com. There's some you can stream the record, her records there, but there's some great videos, and you can see everything that she's going, what we're talking about. So if you're like listening to this and you go, well, what the heck are they talking about? You can go check that out. Before we wrap up, you are kind of a Renaissance woman. You have done and do a lot of other things besides music. So tell us a little bit about some of your other outlets.
Well, like my other outlets are the other jobs that I've had to have to make money. So those are two very different things. Very different.
You decide. I opened the floor. You talk about whatever you like.
Well, we'll go with the things that I really, really enjoy doing.
That's important.
Yes. So another one of my jobs, other than being a musician, is I'm also a bolo tie maker. And for anyone that doesn't know immediately what a bolo tie is, it's basically the country western cowboy string tie. And my great-grandfather wore them all the time, and my mom was an antique jewelry dealer, so I kind of fused the two, and I take antique and estate jewelry pieces and turn them into bolo ties. And instead of having, your basic, like, T-shirts for merch or something like that, I have bolo ties.
Okay.
Cool. That's been one of my favorite things to do. And then, I love thrifting, I love to sew, and I watch a lot of horror movies. So those are the main ones. So the bolo tie thing is definitely a passion.
What's your favorite what are your top 3 favorite horror movies?
Oh my gosh, it's the most impossible question.
Okay, just in this moment, what comes to your mind? We won't hold it to you. If you change your mind, you're welcome to do that.
Okay, well, one of my favorites is Suspiria. It's a Dario Argento film.
Oh, yeah.
And
spooky.
I love it. It's so creepy. I love The Exorcist, which I know it seems, of course you would say Exorcist, but it really is a terrifying, scary movie, and it's one of the first ones that I saw when I was younger, and I just have loved it. So that would be in the top. And then for a newer one, I really liked Insidious. That for the newer movies. God, but there's so many other ones that I like too. So those are the 3 that come to my head first.
You were put on
we'll
the spot.
stick with those.
Well, I'll tell you what. Yeah, The Exorcist. That's my absolute. That's my go-to. But the other ones that you named too are fantastic. And there's something though about that '70s era horror that was like. I don't know, the whole like Rosemary's Baby and Burnt Offerings and all those, The Omen, and I mean those movies were all like they had a vibe to them,
Oh, absolutely. And I've written, so when I was talking about the scary movies that I've written songs about, the ones so far are the Freddy Krueger movies, the Rosemary's Baby. I co-wrote a song about that. Misery. I love all of those. But the 70s ones, I think what makes them so scary is a lot of times it's the music and it's the old film. It's like something about it makes it a little bit more real somehow.
Yeah. It's like you're watching home movies of like your life or something. Yeah, it's weird.
Movies. Yeah, you're watching something you're not supposed to. And the unfortunate part about current scary movies I have found is that they use a lot of CGI, which instantly looks fake to me, whereas back in the 70s, 80s, those time periods, they had to just do a really good job with makeup.
Yeah.
And they might have to use a contortionist to do something really strange. They couldn't just animate it. So that's, I think, a large part of the reason why I like the 70s and 80s for those scary movies.
Cool. Well,
yeah.
So what's coming up for you next? What's where are you headed? Are you touring? What's going on?
Well, it's the holidays, so I tend to shut down and let December be for my family. I do have an online concert tomorrow, which I love doing. I do those through Concert Window, and I basically just set up all my gear in my living room and play for anyone across the country that wants to tune in and has internet. So I'll be doing that tomorrow, and then at pretty much the middle of January is when my remix album comes out. So I'll be doing a lot of promotion for that and probably go back out on the road some. But yeah, just constantly writing and playing shows and doing the music stuff.
Well, there you have it, folks. Mary Jennings, and you can go to maryjennings.com, and like I said earlier, there's you can stream her music and you can watch some very cool videos. And thanks a lot for taking some time out of your schedule to talk with us, Mary.
Oh my gosh, I had such a blast. Thanks for having me on the show.
Hang on one second. We're going to wrap up, and then we'll hang up here after I finish the recording. Just a second.
You got it.
All right, guys, thanks. You've been listening to Mary Jennings here on the Loudini Rock and Roll Circus. You can go to LoudiniRockandRollCircus.com to listen to some of my other interviews. There's gazillions of them now, and hear a lot of great music. We feature artists like Mary Jennings. We will be playing her as well on our music edition of our podcast that comes out every Saturday morning. And you can check that out. There will be a new one coming out. There'll be a new one coming out this Saturday, so check it out. That's LoudiniRockandRollCircus.com. One more time, our sponsors, Positively Pittsburgh Live Magazine, pplmag.com. Thank you so much. And thanks to Michael Stover at mtsmanagementgroup.com. So if you're an artist and you're needing a little help with that publicity side of things, go to mtsmanagementgroup.com. Guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us. Once again, that is LoudiniRockandRollCircus.com, and we will see you guys on the next podcast.